Hello, everyone. This is a truncated edition of the Daily Drum on WHUR and Sirius XM Channel 141. This is the Insight segment for Thursday, March 6th. I'm Harold Fisher. How is your marriage? Whether newlywed, maybe you have a few years in, or 20 years or more, we've all had thoughts about how things are going when it comes to wedded bliss, or not. Is it possible to get what you want out of your marriage, even if things are going well? Well, my guest tonight has some thoughts about that. Sharon Lawrence is a licensed clinical social worker, marriage therapist, and author of the book, 7 Simple Ways to Shape Your Marriage. Sharon, thank you so much for joining the conversation.
Thank you so much for having me here, Harold.
Sure thing. Let me share a few fast facts, first of all. According to a 2023 Gallup survey, married adults between 25 and 50 years old are 17% more likely to report being thriving compared to never married adults in the same age range. Marriage is considered a stronger predictor of overall well-being than other demographic factors. And some studies show that couples who have frequent date nights tend to report significantly higher levels of marital happiness. When you hear some of those facts that I've just shared with you based on that 2023 poll, what comes to mind?
It's all true. That it is about what you intentionally put into your relationship that will make it work. When you have other stressors, because we know life likes to life, as they say, life be life.
And yeah.
There are things that you can't stop. But also, I know that when you go into any relationship, you bring stuff with you. And that stuff doesn't just automatically go away because you say, okay, we're committed, or you say, I do. What you find is that even with all that stuff being there, if you are intentional about that communication piece, that conflict resolution piece, that you have a way to kind of work through anything despite all the stuff that may be in tow with you. So it's the work.
Now, often when we talk about relationships on this program, we talk about fixing things that are broken. But from your perspective, if it ain't broke, why do you have to fix it?
If it ain't broke, doesn't mean that you're fixing it. You're making sure that you're maintaining. It's like when you think about a business and a business has sustainable development goals, right? You're putting things in place so that you can maintain that relationship with your car. Same thing with your car. Something's, you take it in for an oil change. It doesn't mean it's broken. It just needs some oil. It's no different than when you're dealing with any type of relationship, whether it's a friendship, anything. The same goes in your marital relationship. What are you going to do to feed it? It's like a plant. It has life. So it needs food. It needs, talking to. It needs nurturing, just so it can thrive. So you need to be, again, that level of intentionality is key. How important is it to you?
Yeah, I'm sure you probably wouldn't recommend husbands say, baby, you need an oil change because you're squeaking. But you need tune-up.
Don't do that.
Yeah, don't do that.
Because then they're going to think, are you saying I have gas problems? I got all this stuff going on. You're like, what's going on? So, yeah,
you need to rotate your tires.
Yeah, what's up? I'm like, what? I did say communication is key. So, figure out what it is you try to say before they take it the wrong way.
Yeah, how about that? You may be sleeping in your car if you don't. You talk about shaping a marriage, not reshaping. But what does that mean exactly?
The reason I use the word shape is because, one, reshaping implies that it already had a shape. Right? Like you're trying to remold something. Shaping to me is creating your own narrative, regardless of how it started. What is it that you want it to look like? It's like the mold. You're taking the mold, you're deciding, okay, I want it to be a heart shape, or I want it to be a square. Or I want to make sure that we connect every Friday, or I want to make sure that we're talking once a day, or I want to make sure we have eye contact consistently. So we're building trust with one another. So shaping is really about putting the things in place, putting those things on a board, if you will, where you can kind of always see what should exist in your relationship. Meaning, again, what's important to you.
You talk about these 7 simple ways to shape your marriage. Marriage, been there, done that, is at best complex. Some would say at worst, even when things are good, it is complicated. And you mentioned these 7 steps. Love unconditionally. I'm assuming that these are in no particular order. Is that a correct? So yeah. So you got love unconditionally. Let patience guide you. No days off. Let laughter be a staple. Increase communication with eye contact. Touch, and touch some more. This is a family show. Let's never. And create comfort and conflict. And even though you don't have these in any particular order, should there be a hierarchy or a focus on the things that are most important? What would be most important to you for those who are trying to shape their marriage?
The first thing I think I would do is, even though I didn't do this in a particular order, I think love is still at that forefront, because I feel like when we choose to love, those other pieces have the ability to fall into place. It allows you to look at things from a different perspective, because if you're choosing to love despite all the stuff that's going on now, I'm not talking about some other stuff that y'all go, these are deal breakers. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about safety concerns. I'm not talking about manipulation. I'm not talking about gaslight. I'm not talking about that kind of stuff. I'm talking about the things that you go, okay, this is not a deal breaker. This is a communication issue. This is some level of frustration. They keep throwing the socks in the corner when the hamper's right there. Or, they didn't communicate the way I needed them to, or they ignored what I said, or, they forgot to do. I'm talking about those types of things. And also, there are some things where there may be an infidelity issue. There are some people who work through that. Not everybody chooses to leave. And so loving unconditionally is saying, I'm choosing to work through whatever exists in that moment to see how we can get over this.
So how do you do that if you're talking about loving unconditionally, then you just go straight down to the bottom of the list where you're creating comfort in conflict, because based on what we see on social media, there is no comfort in conflict. Folks are just going all the way in when they're not even trying to solve the problem. They're just trying to make sure that the other person understands that this is the problem, and you and your friends and your mama and everybody else is responsible. So how do you create that comfort in conflict?
The best way to do that is to think about how you would want to be able to receive information. I am an individual, I'll tell anybody, if you start yelling at me, I'm going to automatically tune you out. Conflict is one thing. Aggressive confrontation is another. And so I tell people, you may have conflict with an individual, but you can choose to say, can we talk this through? It's like when you are, sending a package, how you sent that package, but if that package shows up with holes in it, it's beat up, you like, what the heck? I didn't expect to get this in the mail. It's the same way when we're delivering communication. How important is that individual to you? And how important is this relationship to you? For you to say, okay, let me turn down this volume some so that they can hear me, because I really want to be heard. I want to be validated, but I also want to do the same for them. And so creating comfort in conflict is saying, I'm not running away. If they say something I don't want to hear, I'm going to sit through it and listen. And it also means reflecting back to them. So you may have to say, okay, so if I hear you correctly, you're saying A, B, and C, and giving that person a chance to say, yeah, that's what I meant, or no, let me say it again. It's not running from trauma and frustration and annoyance, and or I'll even say somebody confronting your negative patterns or behavior. Because some people don't want to be confronted. They just want to do what they want to do, knowing it's not right.
Mm.
And sometimes somebody has to be in a position to tell you that wasn't cool. And if you can't do that in your marriage, that's a problem. This is the person that you trust, to be honest with you, who loves you. So why can't they confront you? Why can't they address it?
You also talk about no days off. What does that mean?
Those people like, I'm leaving. I'm leaving for a month. Where you going?
Oh, wow.
Where you going? Now, if folks want to do that, that's on y'all. The world I live in and the work I do with my couples, when we talk about comfort and conflict, when we talk about loving unconditionally, when we talk about patience and communicating and conflict resolution, that's what no days off. It means work through it. I'm not saying you can't have a timeout that you say, can we pause on this discussion and come back to it because it's too heavy or it's a lot to kind of take in. You come back to it. That's a timeout. No days off is referring to folks who want to literally leave for a minute. You still have a relationship.
That's interesting because we do know that there are some people who need a moment, and that moment may be where I don't need to talk to you today.
Mm-hmm.
Or depending on what the issue is, and it may not be solvable, but there are some people who know themselves well enough to know that I'm not in the space to talk to you right now.
Mm-hmm.
Are you suggesting that? And I'm not saying, what do they say in what is it, Pennsylvania Dutch country? You're not doing the Rumspringa where they just cut loose for
Right.
you crush but do some people need more than a moment in order to fix whatever that issue is? A day, 2 days, a week?
Yeah. And let me just clarify based on what you just asked me. Yes, you have some individuals that say, I need a moment. But y'all are discussing what that moment looks like. Give me a sec. And there's a level of agreement versus you storming out the door. No one knows where you are for days at a time. Or you going and doing other extramarital things because you want to check out completely. And that's what I'm referring to. You can have a moment. You can even say, you know what, I'm going to take a girl's trip, or I'm going to take a guy's trip, just do me just kind of relax. That's fine. You need quiet time. You spend a few hours in the man cave. That's okay. What I'm saying is don't forget you're married. Don't forget you're married and go get yourself into situations that now put the sanctity of your marriage, the stability of your marriage at risk.
Some people just aren't patient. You talk a lot about patience. That old saying, patience is in short supply, and certainly, and some people are just not patient, particularly those people who are mature married people or newly married mature people, where there is an expectation that your partner should have their stuff together. I mean, you talked about throwing your socks in the corner where the hamper is right there. I just don't see how anyone, how a grown person would be really patient, because it goes from, baby, don't throw your socks in the corner, to honey, your socks are in the corner again, right next to the hamper, because I know you're doing 3-shot practices from across the bedroom, to honey, what's up with your socks? To, okay, you and your socks, try the fashion statement where the brothers are wearing slacks with no socks, because I'm tired of you and your socks. How do you address patience or impatience when the cycle keeps repeating for something really, really simple that could eventually get on your nerves?
Mm-hmm. I'll give you a perfect example. My husband, one of those people that kind of just would drop stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll never forget, because I would get frustrated. He was like, I need my own hamper. You got it. You got it. We have our own hampers. So when you're looking for them to take those 6 steps to that, now they don't have, here you go. I don't pick up socks anymore. Why? Because he has his own hamper. Mm-hmm. So I do think it's important that you have a conversation around the things that bother you, especially if you are the primary cleaner, right? In my house, I'm the cleaner. He's the cooker. I'm the cleaner.
Okay.
But I also will tell my husband, he will tell you, I say this all the time, I don't want people to disregard my efforts.
What do you mean by that?
So if I'm cleaning, I'm doing something. Don't just leave a mess for me. Don't leave stuff everywhere. Be considerate. Put it in the sink.
Yeah, that's disrespectful.
So do certain things, because I'll tell we have guests or whatever. I like things. I'm very particular about stuff. Everybody knows that, but I'm the cleaner, and it helps me to rest at night. So, but I'm also mindful that people may do things differently. So even with guests, I'm like, there's a hamper in every room. Like, I'm going to make sure they think it's for them. It's really for me. So you have to ask yourself, when you are addressing these things, how did you initially, show up in that relationship? Were you catering to that person? Were you like, oh, I got it. So are they doing certain things because you kind of dismissed it in the beginning? I know I kind of turned a little bit, but I do ask people, kind of pay attention to the things that are making you frustrated now. Did you ignore them initially? And do you need to kind of go back and rewrite some rules? But I know for me, because I'm the cleaner, I think my husband he was like, oh, okay, I'll get to it later. Or I saw it, I'm gonna come back. He didn't. And so it was like, I need my own hamper. So I went and I found a hamper. We don't have that issue anymore.
But I will say, I do like the turn that you made, because there are some people who see things that you may not think are a deal breaker when you're dating or engaged, that you are catering to, but now 10 years down the road, and you're thinking, I'm not feeling you, homeboy or homegirl, right now, because you were doing that when we dated, and now it's becoming an issue.
Yep. And most of the time it's worse. It's not,
is it worse, or is it because it's still happening and it's piling up in your head or in your experience?
Right. And I think it depends on the person and what they're experiencing, as you say. So for some people, it does get worse. And then for others, it just never stopped. And they assume that the longer they're together, that they can change that person. No, that person showed you who they were, and you showed them who you were. When I wrote this book was for me.
Oh, really?
I needed patience. Yeah. I had to learn some stuff. I'm still learning. We are 11 going on 11 years married soon. And when I met my husband, I knew on the first date he was my husband. So I'm like, okay, Lord, I'm gonna keep him. I'm gonna throw away my receipt because you gave him to me. I knew on the first date, and I laughed. I was like, that's funny, God. Didn't tell us.
You didn't tell him, did you?
Oh, I gave him an application to fill out.
Oh, Lord, have
filled
mercy.
it out. Yeah. 2 weeks later, We were married 9 months later. We were only engaged for 2 hours.
Oh my.
And he planned the whole wedding because I didn't want one. So
maybe I should be talking to him.
let me set that up. He would love that.
But with all of that said, and in these last handful of minutes, at least from my perspective, and all of these issues are important, including obviously the eye contact. But I wanted to go straight to you. You got touch, and touch some more. Drill down on that, especially for those couples who have been around each other for a while.
Yeah. I think touch is a way of communicating that you're connected, and there are some couples who only touch when it's time to be, in sex mode. Let's be real. And even with eye contact, I will tell couples, turn to each other and tell them, and they start giggling. And I'm like, why y'all giggling? We're not used to looking at each other. I'm like, y'all got 5 kids and y'all been together for 20. What do you mean you're not used to looking at each other? And I'm like, do you turn the lights on when you're intimate? No. Try that. Try that. Start becoming more comfortable. And even with touch, when you walk past one another, hug each other, kiss each other, hit each other on the butt. Do something where there's a level of connection. It should not solely be at bedtime. You really should have a connection when you're driving. Reach over. You're saying a lot when you're not saying anything but holding one another's hands. It's letting them know, I see you. I'm with you. That's a sense of security for you, to let you know that you're still bonding. And so find ways to just connect. In the movies, lean on each other. Just look for small little ways. Again, let it go beyond the act of sex. Yeah, I think people miss that.
Do you think that applies for men and women?
Absolutely. Absolutely. You will find that there are some men that are way more touchy-feely than women. I'll never forget, and this is gonna make you laugh. We were in a restaurant and it was out of nowhere. My husband started feeling in my hair. I was like, what are you doing? And everybody at the table, because first he touched me and I didn't say anything, right? I was like, that was weird.
Oh, wow.
Because he's never done that in public. It was like eight of us. And then he started. I said, dude, what are you doing? And everybody just busted out laughing. And he was like, oh, I thought you wanted me. I said, no, leave my hair alone. Don't touch my hair. You can touch my leg. You can touch my arm. You can touch my back. But it was funny because he was like, I don't know what made me do that. I thought you wanted me to. I was like, no, I'm good. Don't. That just felt really like my hair was going to be standing up any minute because you were trying to do a new style. I don't know what was happening, but we all just laughed at that moment. But I was like, I'm saying that to say you got to know how your partner wants to be touched as well. You can do these little things, but constantly, is that good? Do you like that? Do you like when we do this? Check in with them. Find out what makes them comfortable, what makes them feel connected to you. Yeah.
Sharon, I'm out of time, but briefly, for those who want to connect with you because you have 2 practices, one in Prince George's County, but also in Florida. If someone wants to connect with you and find out more about the work you're doing, how can they find you?
They can go to www.mysalawellness.com or SharonJLawrence.com.
Spell that, please.
MYS as in Sam, E as in Eddie, L as in Larry, A as in Apple, H as in Harry, Wellness. MySalawellness.com or SharonJLawrence.com. And I'm on all social media platforms, LinkedIn, Instagram, all other stuff. Yeah, I'm on there. Facebook, it's all there. But if you look on my site, all the icons are there.
Sharon Lawrence, thank you so much for talking to us. I will be in touch. We'll see how things continue to go with the work that you're doing and your marriage. We'll be getting in your business.
Thank you, Harold. Thank you so much.
That is the Daily Drum for this Thursday, March 6th. I'm Harold Fisher.